Wanted to talk to y'all real quickly today about what's referred to commonly as a trigger lead. Trigger leads are really popular in the auto and real estate space. And basically what it means is, the reason why they call it a trigger lead is because when you've applied for a mortgage or an automobile loan, essentially these companies are paying the credit providers, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, to essentially buy the trigger data. So it would be like me saying to the bureaus, I want to purchase X amount of leads for anyone applying for a mortgage, right? So you may notice, if you have recently or in the past have applied for a mortgage, you will sometimes get an abundance of phone calls immediately after you have applied or your credit was pulled. And some people think that that's due to some sort of data breach or what have you, and not to say that that can't be the case, but typically that's going to be because of that trigger data that I'm talking about. Now, usually when I start the process with anyone, I send out what's called the needs list, which would be a bullet pointed list of all the things we would typically need to start the approval process. You know, your income, your assets, your application, obviously. And at the bottom of that, I include opt-out information to opt you out from that trigger data. And the reason why that's so important is because, unfortunately, the majority of the people that I have found that are dealing in that space of trigger leads, they're not the best people to deal with, and for multiple reasons. I mean, they're gonna obviously approach you in the 11th hour. A lot of times, you know, at least when you're dealing with me, I'm not gonna do a hard pull until we're in contract. You know, in the initial approval process, I'm doing what's called the soft pull, so that would prevent that trigger data at that point. So when you get to the hard pull, we're already in contract, which would typically mean that we're like 3 weeks from closing. I would hope that most of my competitors are able to close in 3 weeks. Excuse me. I think, you know, the average is probably about 30 days. So let's say, you know, 4-ish weeks. But nonetheless, to start shopping for a mortgage after you're in contract, number one, that's not the best idea. But number two, and probably even more important than that, is the people approaching you through this trigger data, they know all of that. So they know that you are deep into the process, you know, you're in the thick of it, and they're gonna hit you with a wonderful sounding deal. And they have different ways of making their deal look much better than the competitor, and different ways they'll do that is by shaving their escrow numbers. Maybe they're a bit off on the taxes and insurance, and some of them will do that purposely to make their to make their payment appear lower. Because a lot of people, you know, if you haven't purchased an abundance of real estate, you're looking at the bottom line, right? You're looking at your cash to close and your total payment. You're not necessarily going through line by line on each loan estimate, comparing what one person has for your property taxes versus the other. I just had, you know, somebody approached by the trigger data a few days ago, somebody I'm working with, and they were convinced that this competitor was offering them a payment $200 lower than mine. But sure enough, when I looked at the fee sheet that was sent over, they actually had their taxes skewed by, guess how much? $200. So the $200 that they thought they were saving was fake. It was fictitious. It was a mirage. So they almost switched lenders in the 11th hour because they thought they were getting something better, when in actuality they were not, and they could have risked, you know, delaying their closing, or a number of different things could have occurred. Luckily, you know, we kept those lines of communication open, We took a look at the loan estimates side by side. It turns out that they weren't saving any money at all, and we were able to move forward. But the point here is, when you leave yourself open to that trigger data, it leaves you kind of vulnerable not only to be prey for these, I hate to say scammers, but in a lot of cases that's what they are, but an abundance of nuisance phone calls, and again, the more people that have access to your data that you did not supply them with directly, the more it does leave you open to actual scammers. Not necessarily just competitive loan offers, but who knows who can get and buy that information. So ask your loan officer about opting out of trigger data, or give me a call. Comment below if you would like for me to send you the information directly. I would post it here, but on different social networks, the information, the links don't translate and such. So just direct message me, comment below if you'd like to get that email or information. Hope everybody has a great day. I hope this helps. And as always, if you need